I caught my wife's affair with her boss and teamed up with his wife for the perfect revenge. I watched my wife's face glow as she texted him, that secret smile I hadn't seen in 2 years. My wedding band felt heavy as I scrolled through their messages. Hotels, lies, mockery of how clueless I was. Not anymore. I used to believe I had it all figured out. A successful engineering career, a beautiful home in the suburbs, two amazing kids, and Vanessa, my wife of 16 years. My rock, or so I thought. My name is Mark Anderson. At 43, I'd convinced myself that our marriage had weathered every storm. Sure, we had our arguments, what couple doesn't? But we'd built something solid. Something that would last. The first sign should have been the way she started comparing me to him. Rick knows how to make his wife feel special, she'd say casually over dinner. Rick Holloway, her boss at the advertising agency. Successful, charismatic, powerful. Everything I supposedly wasn't. I tried harder, planned date nights, bought flowers. Each attempt met with the same thinly veiled disappointment. This is your idea of romance? Her words cut deeper than she knew. Lately, Vanessa had been coming home later, her perfume different, her explanations vague. Our 14-year-old Lily noticed it too, the tense silence at breakfast, the way her mother jumped whenever her phone buzzed. Even 9-year-old Jacob asked me why Mommy was always texting at the dinner table. Just work stuff, I'd tell him, ruffling his hair while something cold and uncertain settled in my stomach. Last night, I reached for her in bed. She turned away. I'm exhausted, Mark. The Campbell account is killing me. The Campbell account, always the excuse. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathing, wondering when my wife had become a stranger. This morning, I caught a glimpse of her screen as a message came through. Miss you already? Same time tomorrow? She snatched the phone away, but not before I saw the contact name. Rick. My heart pounded as I drove to work. Was I overreacting? Vanessa was smart, ambitious. Her relationship with her boss was bound to be close. Professional, it had to be. But deep down, in the place where honesty lives, I knew something was terribly wrong. The woman who once looked at me like I hung the moon now barely looked at me at all. Our marriage, the one I'd sacrificed and fought for, was built on quicksand, and I was about to sink. That night changed everything. We were in bed, me flipping through a technical journal, Vanessa beside me. Then I heard it, a soft giggle that made me freeze. It wasn't just any laugh, it was light, flirtatious, almost girlish. I hadn't heard that sound from her in years. She was texting someone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow, eyes sparkling. For a moment, I watched her, this stranger wearing my wife's face. As her fingers danced across the keyboard, her lips curving into a secret smile. Without thinking, I leaned over, trying to catch a glimpse of what or who had brought that expression to her face. The reaction was instant. Vanessa jerked the phone against her chest, her entire body tensing. What do you think you're doing? The words sliced through the quiet bedroom. Just wondering what's so funny, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's nothing. She got up abruptly, taking the phone with her to the bathroom. I heard the lock click. When she returned 15 minutes later, the phone was gone. She slipped under the covers without a word, turning her back to me. The next morning, I confronted her over coffee. Who were you texting last night? Her coffee mug hit the counter with a sharp crack. Seriously? This again? Again? This is exactly what I'm talking about, Mark. You're suffocating me. I'm entitled to my privacy. I'm asking because you've never hidden your phone from me before. Her eyes narrowed. Are you accusing me of something? I took a deep breath. Let me see your phone. Absolutely not. She grabbed her purse. I'm late for work. For a week, the tension between us was unbearable. The kids noticed. Lily stopped bringing friends over. Jacob asked if we were getting divorced. Finally, after days of cold silence, Vanessa relented. Fine, here. She thrust her phone at me. Happy now? I wasn't. Something felt off. Conversations with coworkers seemed choppy, unnaturally formal. Entire text chains with Rick were missing, despite her mentioning work discussions with him at dinner just days before. That night, I called Dave, an IT specialist friend. I need your help recovering deleted messages. It's important. Dave didn't ask questions. 2 days later, he called back. Mark, you might want to sit down for this. The recovered texts appeared like ghosts. Fragments at first, then entire conversations. 2 years worth. Rick, miss you already. Last night was incredible. Vanessa, I can still feel you. When can I see you again? Rick, tomorrow? I'll book the usual room. Vanessa, God, yes. Mark's so clueless. It's almost too easy. Message after message. Hotel rooms, lies about work trips, plans made while I sat home with our children. My world collapsed around me as I scrolled through the evidence of my wife's betrayal. Every memory of the past 2 years now tainted, every I love you she'd uttered a mockery. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I needed time. I needed a plan. Because this wasn't just about Vanessa and me anymore. I spent 3 days in a fog of rage and heartbreak. I'd catch myself staring at Vanessa across the dinner table, watching her laugh with our children, wondering how she could live this double life so effortlessly. How could she look me in the eyes each night after being in his bed? Confronting her directly would be pointless. She'd deny it, delete evidence, maybe even twist things to make me the villain. I needed leverage. I needed an ally. That's when I thought of Samantha Holloway. I found her number through the company directory Vanessa had brought home last Christmas. My hands trembled as I dialed. Mrs. Holloway, my name is Mark Anderson, Vanessa's husband. We need to talk. About? Her voice was guarded, polite. About our spouses, and what they've been doing together for the past 2 years. Silence. Then, I think you have the wrong idea about... I have the text messages, Ms. Holloway, between Rick and my wife. Explicit messages about hotel rooms and other things. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop far from both our neighborhoods. She arrived wearing oversized sunglasses, her blonde hair tucked under a hat. Show me, she said, without preamble. I handed her my phone. She scrolled through the messages, her posture stiffening with each swipe. When she reached the part where they joked about their clueless spouses, her hand went to her mouth. Rick told me he was working late, she whispered, reading a message timestamp. That night was our anniversary. Her eyes met mine, no longer hiding behind her glasses. They weren't teary, they were ice. I want everything, she said. Every message, every detail. If you're helping me expose them, I need to be certain. I'm sure, I said, but we need more evidence. Samantha nodded. I'll get it. Rick trusts me completely. Her laugh was bitter. He thinks I'm too stupid to suspect anything. Over the next week, Samantha became a detective in her own home. She forwarded me timestamps of when Rick claimed to be working late. I matched them against Vanessa's excuses. They aligned perfectly. Samantha photographed hotel receipts from Rick's jacket pockets, credit card statements showing dinners for 2 at restaurants across town. But the smoking gun came when she accessed Rick's iCloud account. He syncs everything, she texted me at 2 a.m. Photos, messages. He never bothered to hide it because he never thought I'd look. The pictures she sent made me physically ill. My wife and her boss in various hotel rooms. Their betrayal documented in full color. We met again, this time at a bar where neither of our spouses would ever go. I've contacted a divorce attorney, Samantha said, sliding a business card across the table. Harrison Phelps, best in the state. He's willing to represent both of us, separately, of course. What's the plan? I asked. Her smile was cold. According to Rick's calendar, which he conveniently shares with his assistant who shares it with me, he and Vanessa have booked a business retreat this weekend at the Lakeside Resort, room 718. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, I said, my voice hollow. No, she agreed. They think they're untouchable, she leaned forward. I want to serve Rick the divorce papers while he's with her. I want a process server and a witness, and I want you there too. You want to catch them in the act? I want them to know that we know. I want to see their faces when their perfect little fantasy world collapses. She took a sip of her wine. They've made fools of us for 2 years, Mark. It's time they faced the consequences. I nodded slowly, picturing the scene. What about the kids? Mine and yours? My sister will take mine for the weekend. Can yours stay with someone? My parents can take them, I said. Samantha's eyes glittered in the dim light. Then it settled. This ends Saturday night. Friday night, Vanessa packed her overnight bag in our bedroom. I watched from the doorway, silent, memorizing every detail of the performance she'd perfected. "It's just bad timing," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Rick needs me at this client retreat. The Campbell account is on the line." The Campbell account, her favorite excuse. I almost laughed. She kissed the kids goodnight, promising to bring them souvenirs. When she reached for me, I gave her a brief mechanical hug. "Everything okay?" she asked, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Perfect," I replied. "Have a productive trip." As her car disappeared down our street, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. This was the last time Vanessa Anderson would ever lie to my face. Saturday, 8:45 p.m. Samantha and I stood in the lakeside resort lobby, a pair of process servers at our side. I wore a suit, my armor for the battle ahead. "Ready?" Samantha asked, her voice steady. "Been ready for 2 years," I answered. The front desk called room 718. Vanessa answered, sounding annoyed at the interruption. The manager explained there was an urgent package that required her signature. 7 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Vanessa emerged in a white hotel bathrobe, her hair disheveled, lips swollen. She froze mid-step when she saw me, her face draining of color. Her eyes darted frantically, landing on Samantha, whose cold stare would have frozen hell itself. "Mark, what are you doing here?" Vanessa stammered, clutching her robe tighter. I said nothing, just nodded to the process server. "Vanessa Anderson?" the woman asked professionally. Vanessa nodded automatically. "You've been served with divorce papers." She handed Vanessa the thick envelope. "All the evidence of your infidelity has been documented for the court." Vanessa swayed slightly, grabbing the wall for support. "Evidence? What?" "Every text message, every hotel receipt, every explicit photo you sent him," I said quietly. 2 years' worth. The hotel lobby seemed to spin around her. She lurched toward me, reaching for my arm. "Mark, please, we can fix this. It was a mistake, a stupid, terrible mistake." I stepped back, her fingers grasping air. "It wasn't a mistake, Vanessa. A mistake is something you do once. You made a choice. Every day. For 2 years. Her composure cracked completely. "You don't understand. I never meant to hurt you. I love you." "Fascinating," Samantha cut in. "Is that what you told my husband too?" Vanessa's eyes widened. "Oh God. He's being served right now," Samantha smiled thinly. "At our home, where he thinks he's safe. He's not." Vanessa collapsed onto a lobby chair, sobbing openly now, oblivious to the stares from hotel staff and guests. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity. Just emptiness where love had been. "The locks will be changed by morning," I said. "Your things will be boxed up by my lawyer. You can contact him about visitation with the children." "The children? Mark, you can't—" "I have documented evidence that you abandoned our family regularly to conduct an affair. Do you really want to fight me on custody?" At that moment, her phone began ringing in her robe pocket. Rick, no doubt, experiencing his own nightmare across town. I turned to leave, Samantha beside me. Vanessa's desperate voice followed us. "Mark, please, where am I supposed to go?" I stopped, turned slowly. "I hear Rick has a comfortable couch. After all, he won't be sharing a bed with Samantha anymore." We walked out, shoulder to shoulder, into the cool night air. "How do you feel?" Samantha asked as we reached the parking lot. "Hollow," I admitted. Her smile was sad. "That passes, then comes the relief." Across town, Rick was discovering that his perfect life was collapsing too. As we'd planned, he'd been served papers simultaneously. His business reputation would soon be in tatters. Sleeping with a subordinate violated every corporate policy. Vanessa and Rick had gambled everything for their affair. Now they'd lost everything because of it. This was victory, but it tasted nothing like I'd imagined. The days after the hotel confrontation passed in a blur. I moved through life mechanically, taking the kids to school, going to work, coming home to a house that no longer felt like home. Vanessa's calls came incessantly. 37 voicemails in 3 days, each one more desperate than the last. "Mark, please, just talk to me. I made a terrible mistake. We have 15 years together. You can't throw that away." When I finally answered on the fourth day, her voice broke with relief. Oh, thank God. Mark, we need to meet. I can explain everything. There's nothing to explain, I said, surprised by my own calmness. The divorce papers explain it perfectly. She showed up at my office the next day, eyes red-rimmed, clutching a small gift bag. My receptionist looked uncomfortable when she announced her. 5 minutes, I told Vanessa, not inviting her to sit. I brought you something. She pulled out a watch, the one I'd admired months ago but couldn't justify buying. I was saving it for our anniversary, but stop. I pushed the box back toward her. You can't buy your way out of this. Her face hardened slightly. You're not even trying. Don't our years together mean anything? Don't the kids deserve parents who fight for their marriage? You should have thought about that before you climbed into bed with Rick. Something in her eyes changed. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. Rick made me feel desired. When was the last time you truly saw me, Mark? I laughed without humor. And here it is. I was wondering when you'd get to blaming me. Her strategy shifted again at the parent-teacher conference, the only place I couldn't avoid her. She was soft-spoken, teary-eyed, the picture of maternal devotion. Afterward, she approached Lily in the parking lot. Honey, please tell your father we need to talk as a family. This affects all of us. Lily, 14 going on 30, stared at her mother with eyes too old for her face. You didn't think about all of us when you were cheating on Dad. Vanessa recoiled as if slapped. Lily, you don't understand adult relationships. I understand lying. I understand betrayal. Our daughter's voice shook. Dad didn't tell me anything. I figured it out months ago when you started coming home smelling like someone else's cologne. Jacob was less aware but sensed the fracture in our family. Can't you just say sorry to Daddy? He asked Vanessa one day during drop-off. His innocent question left her speechless. There were moments I wavered, when I'd catch myself remembering the good times, wondering if there was anything salvageable. Then I'd remember the texts, her cruel comparisons, the calculated deception, and my resolve hardened again. My lawyer called with updates. Vanessa was fighting the division of assets despite initial promises to make things right. Rick had been fired from the agency after their HR department received anonymous evidence of his affair with a subordinate. I heard they'd moved in together, a desperate coupling born of mutual destruction rather than love. Their affair, exciting in secrecy, withered in the harsh light of reality. 6 months later, we faced each other across a courtroom. Vanessa looked diminished somehow, the confident woman I'd married now a shadow. When the judge asked if there was any possibility of reconciliation, I didn't hesitate. No, Your Honor. The gavel fell, dissolving 16 years of marriage in an instant. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa approached one last time. I hope you'll forgive me someday, she said quietly. I studied her face, once so beloved, now a stranger's. I already have, I replied. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and it certainly isn't the same as reconciliation. She nodded, eyes downcast. And Rick? Last I heard, Samantha took him for everything. The house, the cars, half his retirement. The kids won't speak to him. Karma, Vanessa said softly. Or just consequences, I replied, turning away. I walked to my car alone, feeling lighter than I had in months. The future stretched before me, uncertain, but undeniably mine. 1 year after the divorce, I stood in my kitchen making pancakes for Lily and Jacob on a Sunday morning. The house was filled with laughter again, something I hadn't realized was missing until it returned. Vanessa had moved to another city, taking a demotion at a smaller agency after the scandal destroyed her reputation at work. The last I'd heard, Rick had tried to rekindle their relationship, but she'd finally seen through him. Too late for regrets. The custody arrangement gave me the kids most of the time, with Vanessa seeing them every other weekend. Lily remained distant with her mother. Jacob, with his endless capacity for forgiveness, was slowly rebuilding their relationship. Throughout it all, Samantha had been my rock. Our shared trauma created a bond that few could understand. We met regularly for coffee, comparing notes on single parenthood and healing. How do you do it? She asked one evening as we walked through the park after our kids' soccer game. You seem so at peace. I considered her question. I think it's because I finally stopped blaming myself. Vanessa made her choices. I was just collateral damage. Months passed, our coffee dates became dinners, dinners became movie nights. Our children became friends, united by their similar experiences. Neither of us rushed. We were both too wounded, too cautious. But somewhere along the way, friendship blossomed into something more. Our first real date was nothing fancy, just dinner at a small Italian restaurant. But I remember feeling truly seen for the first time in years. There was no pretense with Samantha, no need to be anyone but myself. 6 months later, the kids were the ones pushing us together. Just ask her to move in already, Lily told me one night, rolling her eyes with the perfect teenage blend of exasperation and affection. On a crisp autumn day, I received a text from Vanessa asking to meet. My stomach tightened, but curiosity won out. She was waiting at our old favorite cafe, looking thinner, older. The polished executive was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice subdued. I nodded, waiting. "I heard about you and Samantha." No accusation in her tone, just resignation. "Are you happy?" "Yes," I answered honestly. "We are." She nodded slowly. "Good. You deserve that." She twisted her coffee cup nervously. "I'm moving to Seattle next month. Fresh start. The kids will miss you." "I know, but I think some distance might help, especially with Lily." We sat in silence before she finally said what she'd come to say. "I wish I'd never done it, Mark. Not just because I got caught, but because I destroyed something precious for something worthless." I looked at my ex-wife, this woman I'd once loved more than life itself, and felt nothing but a distant sadness. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Vanessa." I walked away from that cafe, feeling the final chains of my past fall away. The anger, the betrayal, it was finally over. 2 years to the day after discovering Vanessa's affair, I proposed to Samantha. Our wedding was small, just our children and close friends. No grand gestures, no elaborate promises, just honest words between two people who had learned the hard way what truly matters. Sometimes life's greatest gifts emerge from its deepest wounds. I lost a wife but found a partner. The children lost their perfect family but gained an authentic one. And Vanessa? Last I heard, she's still alone, paying the price for her choices. Some debts can never fully be repaid.